and welcome back. Well, this morning, ARC Appalachia is debuting the first of a new segment we are doing here called Off the Shelf with ARC Appalachia.
Yeah, WCHS executive producer Cindy Adkins is talking to authors who highlight Appalachia through their words.
Well, in today's segment, we hear from Jessica Walker on her debut, YA novel that lets you read the notes passed back and forth between two teens in their search for answers to the universe.
Two teenage girls find friendship and understanding while searching for answers to a decades-long mystery in The Secret Astronomers by debut novelist Jessica Walker.
The Secret Astronomers is my debut novel. It is an epistolary novel, which means it's written between correspondence between two main characters. From the outside of the book, it kind of looks like an interesting textbook that's been written over with handwritten drawings and notes. But when you open it, you see that there's an incredible world inside of Post-it notes and handmade drawings, and all of the text is handwritten over an astronomy textbook. And the correspondence between the two characters is all anonymous. They don't know who each other are. And they go by the code names Copernicus and Kepler, which are references to astronomy.
Set in Pocahontas County, the novel uses the real-life National Radio Quiet Zone at the Green Bank Observatory to create the world the two girls live in.
People from all over the world come to Green Bank to use the telescope because it's one of the largest, most powerful radio telescopes in the world. So it's very sought after. And I think there's just something really interesting about a quiet town that's listening out for extraterrestrial life, and just thinking about the teenagers there, because they have to rely on different modes of communication than maybe different parts of the world do these days. You know, they don't always have access to Wi-Fi. So, you know, they still talk to each other and they still have to get around without GPS, you know? So it's just interesting to think about their lives. And I wanted to build a story around that.
The novel relies on notes written back and forth in an old astronomy textbook with code names for the characters and those in their lives as they navigate the school year. It spans topics that, despite being set in 2016, are still very relevant to young readers, including navigating grief, dealing with an incarcerated loved one, and being raised by a grandparent.
There are so many circumstances that a young person can come across that they have no control over, that, you know, end up dictating their life. And so I hope that, you know, people might see that in a new light through these characters.
When it comes to inspiration, Walker used her own upbringing and experiences in West Virginia to help guide the narrative.
I grew up in Washington County, Virginia, which has more in common with West Virginia than it does the rest of the state of Virginia, I would argue. And when I turned 18, the minute I could, I left because I felt as a young person that I just wanted something new. I wanted something different. And I've always been interested in the arts, and I had this dream to live in a city because I think it was like the most different possible thing I could think of at the time when I was a kid. So I haven't lived in the area for 25 plus years, but the uniqueness of Appalachian culture, and I mean, I still have lots of family who live there. I think that when you move away from it, you see it in a new light and you start to appreciate the complexity of it and the beauty of it because it is so unique. There's no other parts of the world that are like West Virginia. And I wanted to think about some of those stereotypes through one of the voices and make sure that the reader understood how to defend some of those parts of the culture that are often seen as irrelevant, or having people who are lazy or don't have access to education.
Don't expect normal words on a page. The Secret Astronomers calls itself a novel in notes and showcases art, photos, and other found items to tell the story.
As a creative person, I think it's very freeing to work with materials that already exist in the world and to reimagine them in a new way. I think that's what artists do. And so the idea here was to take this existing old astronomy book, which is actually a real astronomy book from the late 1800s, written by an astronomer named Charles Young. And it's now in the public domain. So I'm using this book as the background for all of the art and all of the text in the book. And I was the kind of kid and teenager who drew in books, which I realize is probably not a good thing to admit, but that's what I did because I was an artsy kid. I was always drawing in things and keeping sketchbooks and writing on my wall, and that's how I expressed myself.
And despite being shelved in the young adult section, Walker says this novel is for everyone.
I've illustrated books before, but I've never written books. So, you know, I've never written anything. So this is just like my first YA experience. And I'm learning that it seems pretty open. Like it's not so siloed that YA is just for young adults. I'm finding that it's actually for a wider audience because a coming of age story is like relevant to pretty much all of us, you know?
For Off the Shelf with ARC Appalachia, I'm Cindy Atkins.